Investigations help Congress figure out just who's to blame for the attack and lack of response. Joining us now, two members of the House Oversight Committee, Republican Jason Chaffetz and also Democrat Dennis Kucinich. Gentlemen, welcome to you both.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, Congressman Kucinich, I'll start with you. Do you have any concerns about the fact that Congress didn't know more about what was going on with respect to General Petraeus, the FBI investigating the CIA? Do you have any concerns about how that played out and that you didn't know more about it?
Well, frankly, you know, there's a matter here that's between General Petraeus and his wife, and the national security implications people might want to get into. I'm more concerned about what the heck happened in Libya and what happened when General Petraeus was in charge of the CIA in Libya. That's what I'm concerned about.
Are you worried about
because
him
we have 4 people who died.
We absolutely 4 dead Americans. So do you worry that his inability or the fact that he probably is not going to show up at these hearings this week, although you may hear from him in the future, may have to subpoena him, are you worried that him missing from these 3 different hearings this week is going to have an impact on what you can find out?
That's a problem, and here's why. Look, I don't, frankly, personally, I don't care about having hearings about his affair. What I do care about is that he's there to testify about what happened in Benghazi. We need to know that. He was the head of the CIA at that time. I think they could restrict it, that they don't get into the affair. That if they want to look at that later, that's their business. But frankly, I think the top priority has to be why did 4 Americans die, and why, and Frank, and you know, there's another thing. Why were we in Libya in the first place? We should have never been there. And that's a, you know, that's a deeper policy question, unfortunately, which was ignored in the 2012 presidential campaign.
Not something that was talked about on that front. Congressman Chaffetz, again, most Americans probably would say they don't really care about General Petraeus' affair, except for the fact that if in any way it could have impacted his exposure and national security. But I'm sure that you, like many others, are much more in the immediate future worried about what happened to those 4 Americans who were lost, why we didn't know more going in, and what we've learned since.
Well, I am very concerned about what happened or didn't happen with this affair. This is the head of the CIA, for goodness sake. Of course we need to know what the FBI knew, when did they know it, when did they brief the president. If we have the head of the CIA who is potentially compromised, I would think and hope that that would go to the President of the United States as soon as possible. And then the question, it's so suspicious. I mean, it comes days after the election, and then, you know, days after the election, and then days before he's supposed to testify. Now, at the very least, Shannon, he should absolutely testify this week. There is no reason, no excuse not to have him continue to testify this week.
Congressman
I would
Kucinich,
agree.
you seem like you're
I agree with Congressman Chaffetz. He should be testifying, and I would say that it ought to be related to what's happening in Benghazi.
Do you also think the timing of how this played out is suspicious, as does your colleague?
Well, of course. I mean, it's like a high duh factor here. You know, a few days before he's supposed to testify, all of a sudden he's out. Obviously, there was some control over the timing here, so he had to leave before he was supposed to go before Congress. I don't know. I mean, that doesn't look right. It doesn't smell right. Anybody who watches things in Washington understands that when a top person gets pushed out a few days before a congressional hearing, that's the reason for Congress to call that person and answer questions about what happened in Benghazi and how were 4 Americans killed as a result, and what role did the CIA play.
Congressman Chaffetz, will you subpoena him? Will the committee subpoena him if necessary, General Petraeus?
Potentially. I have spoken with Chairman Darrell Issa there in the Oversight Committee. We thought we'd give it just a day or two to play out here. We'll convene Monday, Tuesday, and make some determinations there. But I think it's imperative that the General Petraeus testify. I'd like it to happen this week within the intelligence committees. But if we need to bring him before Oversight, I think that's a distinct possibility.
Do you think that the acting director, Mike Morrell, will be able to give you the answers that you need? Or do you think there are things that only specifically General Petraeus would be able to have the authority to speak to at this point?
No, look, I want to hear from everybody. I think it's imperative to hear from both. I also want to hear from Secretary Clinton. I want to hear from Ambassador Rice and how she made those statements time after time after time and who briefed her. There's so much to know.